Now to a developing story out of Schenectady where police are on the hunt for whoever opened fire inside an apartment about 2 hours ago. Craig Smith is live on Madison Street. And Craig, we understand there was an infant right there taken out of there a short time ago.
Yeah, that's what the police are telling us, Greg. What I'm about to report comes from talking to police, a taxi driver from Albany, and one person who said he's familiar with the couple that lived in the third floor apartment back there at 5 Madison. And as I do that, take a look at some of the pictures we took from earlier this afternoon. Police say it happened about 3:20 this afternoon. There's a couple that lives in an apartment on that third floor, a woman and her partner and their infant. They moved in there about a month and a half ago. They moved here from Manhattan. The man moved to the U.S. from Guyana at some point. The taxi driver I spoke with and I saw police talking with told me that a woman in Albany at Walmart came to him and said, "Look, can you get me to Schenectady? I'm in a terrible situation." So he drives her over here. She ran out of the cab, evidently. She left her purse in the cab. I saw the cabbie give the purse to police. His concern was for his fare. They told him not to worry about it. We
received a call at 3:21. Officers responded, found the victim. He was treated on scene, transported to the Med. The relationship between the victim and the suspect is unknown at this time.
So that's Lieutenant Mark McCracken with the Schenectady Police Department, essentially telling us about all we know officially from the police about what happened there. Someone was shot. Presumably it was this man who lives in there. We don't know why he was shot or exactly what his condition is. McCracken said they hope to interview him. He wasn't sure that that person would survive. As we gather more information, we'll relay it to you online and on the air. In Schenectady, Craig Smith, CBS 6 News.
Again tonight with a crime tracker alert. The man behind a rash of burglaries in the city of Schenectady is behind bars tonight. Police say 22-year-old Joshua Wise admitted to stealing electronics and money from at least 10 homes on the north side. Homes he entered, they say, while those who lived there were asleep inside. Jennifer Lukey joins us now. And Jen, the stuff that police say he took was sold pretty quickly on the streets, I'm hearing.
It was, Liz. In most cases, Wise took only what he could carry, and that meant a lot of smartphones, iPods, and iPads. Schenectady police believe he sold those items on the streets, normally within 24 hours. They actually also arrested the owner of a discount secondhand store, who they say was trying to sell one of those stolen phones in his store.
Investigators say Joshua Wise chose homes to break into based on how close they were to his own. He needed to be able to carry with him what he stole.
It makes us a lot nervous, especially when we have kids. And there's kids, period, all on this block. So it does make you nervous because it's right around, right down the block.
Police say Wise got rid of much of his stolen loot within 24 hours of taking it. This woman was picked up for trying to sell one of the stolen phones to a secondhand shop.
They're flipped almost immediately, either through Craigslist or through other people on the street. Everybody takes their little cut, You sell it to me for $40, I sell it to somebody else for $60, and it goes on and on and on.
In that case, the secondhand shop owner ran the serial number through an online database, and it came back clean, but
either it wasn't up to date, or in fact it wasn't legitimate to begin with. And of course, there's always the potential that the people running that website may be the actual thieves or the people who traffic in that type of thing, and they use it as a diversion.
This man, Hussein, is the owner of Sam's discount store in the city. He allegedly didn't even bother trying to check and see if one of the phones he bought from the suspect was hot.
All the secondhand dealers have a responsibility to look into these things, and we're only a phone call away.
So you can see just how quickly a phone or an iPad is sold after it's stolen. And in many of these cases, Wise told investigators he looked for opportunity at homes with unlocked doors and windows were his primary target. And then he moved on to homes that had open windows with screens and fans that he could push in, Liz.
It is always amazing how many people leave those doors unlocked. But I understand that it looks like a secondhand shop dealer actually did the right thing and that another one didn't. So do police normally go to these kinds of shops right away when they're looking to track somebody down?
They do, Liz. You know from all your perp patrols, too. They look at these secondhand shops, pawn shops, Craigslist, Craigslist. Typically, when someone is pulling off these kind of crimes, they're looking for quick cash, which means they just want to sell it off as fast as they can. And as I mentioned in this case, much of the stolen stuff was sold within 24 hours, and police say a lot of their leads actually came from Craigslist.
Right. All right. Well, thank you very much for the good information and the good reminder to all of us. And another Albany man, 45-year-old Maurice Skeen, had the book thrown at him today after he was found guilty of predatory sexual assault. Skeen had sex with a girl under the age of 11 for years. The DA credited the young victim with great poise and courage during the investigation and trial. The man who admitted to killing Charles Bowman from Schenectady last year has been sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 17 years. The sentence was handed down today in Schenectady County Court. On April 10th, Terrell Bethea admitted to shooting Bowman during an argument. It happened on October 5th. Police say the two were arguing about a burglary earlier in the day. Bethea says he thought Bowman was involved. His family says it's really tough now to move on.
If I was to say anything to anybody, any parent, anybody, hug your loved ones. Hug them whenever it comes to your mind, because you never know. You won't see them again.
And she goes on to say that forgiving Bethea is a, quote, work in progress. Good evening. I'm Liz Bishop. Jerry has the night off tonight. He brutally beat a 67-year-old woman, dragging her out of her car and into a dark alley where he then sexually assaulted her. Today, Antonio Lopez Batista learned he will spend the next 11 years behind bars for that crime. Jennifer Lukey was in the courtroom today for the sentencing. She joins us live now with more. Jen?
Well, Liz, the victim herself was not in court today for the sentencing, but she did testify against her attacker at the trial last month. A jury found Batista guilty then, and today a judge sentenced him to more than a decade in state prison. Once that sentence is served, Batista, who has been living in this country illegally since 2009, will be deported back to Mexico.
In the early morning hours of May 22, 2012, the 67-year-old victim was waiting for her husband in the car in this parking lot behind the West Side Stadium in Saratoga Springs when she was attacked. A surveillance camera caught most of the brutal beating.
In this particular case, we were fortunate to have the actual footage from the restaurant, which showed this man waiting, sneaking up to this woman, ripping her out of the car, trying to force himself on her physically and in a sexual way, dragging her across the parking lot into the darkness as he heard the police coming. He's a beast. Someone who needs to be incarcerated, needs to be taken out of our community.
The attack lasted 3.5 minutes, but its effects will impact the victim forever.
Each and every day she struggles with what happened. And the mundane activities like getting in the car and driving somewhere are just forever changed for her.
In court today, through an interpreter, Antonio Lopez Batista cried while apologizing, saying he had taken cold medicine while drinking heavily and thought the victim was, quote, a political person of corruption in his Mexican hometown.
He does say that he did black out, that he does hallucinate when he does consume alcohol.
His attorney claims Batista is sorry.
I do see him as a human being, you know, and he is very remorseful. I've seen him shed many of tears.
The time for remorse and for thought should have been in the parking lot before he committed the act, before he dragged her out of the car, before he beat her, before he tried to rape her and do the horrific things that he did.
Now, under the law, an illegal alien who is convicted of a crime must first serve their sentence in this country before being deported, and that's because in most cases, U.S. law enforcement has no jurisdiction in other countries and can't guarantee that the penalty is carried out. Live in studio tonight, Jennifer Lukey, CBS 6 News.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Thanks very much, Eric. 3 Albany teenagers are facing charges tonight for what police say they did to a pizza delivery man. Investigators say the group waited for the man to return from a delivery and then held him up at gunpoint. This all happening around 6 Sunday night along Benjamin Street. Police say the delivery man turned over all the cash he had and the group took off. They were arrested a short time later.
And is recovering after getting shot during a robbery. It happened just before 9 on Division Street, just east of State Street. Police say the victim was standing on the street with someone else when they were approached by a man with a gun who demanded cash. The victim tried to grab the gun, but during the struggle, it went off, leaving him with a gunshot wound to the leg. He was taken to an area hospital where he's in stable condition. Police are...
Breaking news just into our newsroom. Police have announced that they have arrested a man now accused of assaulting a Schenectady high school student and pushing her in front of an oncoming bus. 52-year-old Ulysses Wynn of Clifton Park is charged with reckless endangerment and harassment. Police say yesterday afternoon the student, a female, shouted at a speeding driver to slow down as he drove down the plaza near Schenectady High. They say Wynn pulled over, got out, walked up to the girl and slapped her, and then proceeded to shove her into the street in front of a moving bus. He then, according to police, got back in the car and drove off. She was examined by EMTs and went back to school, and today they have arrested Ulysses Wynn. And a list of charges against the driver police say led them on a high-speed chase. CBS 6 was first on the scene last night after that chase ended with a Jeep crashed into a bank in Rotterdam. Schenectady police say they tried stopping Natasha Papalizio after reports that someone had flashed a gun downtown, but that she sped off after they pulled her over. She's charged with dozens of traffic violations and other offenses, including drug charges and endangering the welfare of a child. The passenger, identified as 22-year-old Margarita Lopez of Schenectady, is facing drug charges. Schenectady police say Papalizio's car matches a description of incidents in which people were shot with a BB gun in this city and in Scotia. They're investigating now to see if there is a connection.
It all happened inside this store.
Francis Smith says he went to the store at the corner of Congress and 3rd Streets in Troy late Saturday night with his wife and brother to buy some drinks and playing cards. He says 2 men walked in.
So then I walked past a Hispanic male, and he says, "What the F?" And all I said was, "Are you talking to me?" And then my wife said, "Come on, Frank, let's go." I said, "Okay." So I turned around, went to the counter, checked my bag. He just came up behind me, pounded it in. My brother just went right after him.
Surveillance video inside the store shows a confrontation and a scuffle. Smith says he didn't even know he had been stabbed in the neck with a screwdriver at first. They're fighting, and then he, along with everyone else, is thrown out of the store.
And then when they got away, I put my hand like this, and I asked my brother, "Is there something in the back of my neck?" And he's like, "Yeah, a screwdriver sticking out of your neck."
Smith says he doesn't know his attacker, that his life is all about work and family, and that the most difficult thing was trying to explain to his 3 children why he wasn't feeling well.
So I call my kids inside the bedroom. I show them the back of my neck. Isn't some bad guy trying to kill your dad? And they said, "You can't die, we love you."
Smith says he could have lost his life over a bunch of words.
On its face, it was just an argument that turned into an assault, and in fact an assault with a dangerous instrument and or deadly weapon, which could put someone in prison for quite some time.
Police are looking for 2 people involved in a bank robbery this morning in Schenectady. It happened around 11:15 at the Key Bank at 1610 Eastern Parkway. Police say a woman in her 20s handed a teller a note and got away with an unknown amount of cash. They say a man was waiting outside the bank on a BMX bike. The 2 were last seen biking east on Eastern Parkway. Anyone with info is asked to contact police. A traffic stop on the thruway ends with 3 downstate people arrested on drug charges. 23-year-old Michael Payne, 19-year-old Chiara Maldonado, and 30-year-old Justin Blake were arrested in Ravenna last night. Investigators say Payne, the driver, failed to move over when he passed a cruiser on the shoulder with its lights on. When officers searched the car, they say they found drug paraphernalia. They say Maldonado also had crack cocaine and heroin. Investigators say Blake was paying her to distribute the drugs from New York City to Troy. All three are being held at the Albany County Jail without bail.
A Troy man pleaded guilty today to manslaughter and criminal possession of a weapon in the death of a city man. 19-year-old Alan McBee admitted to shooting and killing Scott Kim Miller. Investigators say the two shot at each other on a street corner in Troy last March, an exchange that left Miller, who was an aspiring rapper, dead. McBee will be sentenced later this month. He could face as many as 15 years in state prison. A warning from police to women tonight about a new way that crooks are getting a hold of your purse. It's called sliding. Police say a car will pull up next to a car that's pumping gas, and the thief will then open the door on the opposite side from where the driver is and then take the purse and quickly make a getaway. And many times it all happens without the victim even knowing it's happened. Police say this is really happening all over the country.
I don't hold the pump. I usually click the holder on the pump so I can have time to actually scan what's going on around me.
Police are urging drivers to lock your doors even though you're right next to the car. Well, a popular Boston Spa restaurant known for its very generous family-style servings has burned to the ground. The fire broke out at Augie's on Route 50 very early this morning. Our Jerry Gretzinger is live on the scene now to tell us what happened there. Jerry?
You know, Liz, you nailed it there. If you were looking for heaping portions of Italian food, this was the place to go. Augie's on Route 50 in Ballston Spa. This morning around 4:30, folks who work at the Stewart shop, just about 100 yards to my right here, saw smoke coming out of the building. They called fire officials and they arrived here. And as you can see now, just a short number of hours later, 8 hours later, Augie's is no more. It has all been torn down. Spoke to the fire chief a short time ago. He said he believes a fire started down in the basement beneath the actual eating area of the restaurant this morning. He said it actually could have been burning since late last night. There were 2 tile floors, he said, that have been put down over the past 9 years since Augie's first opened that kind of served as a lid almost on a pot, which was keeping all of that heat down there in the basement. So once that fire finally broke through that first floor, he said everything just kind of crumbled underneath that. It goes right around 9 o'clock this morning, the whole first floor caved in, and then it wasn't long before the rest of the building followed suit. I did speak with the owner, Augie Vitiello, a short time ago, who told me about what the morning was like for him, and as he started talking about the plans to rebuild, you heard the rest of Augie's collapse behind him. Take a listen.
It's tough, you know. It's tough to watch, you know, your life go up in cinder like that. But you know, I mean, nobody was hurt, and we're grateful for that. And you know, you step back and you reflect about everything, and you say to yourself, you know what, it's going to get rebuilt, and it will. And you know, I feel for, you know, I feel for, you know, for.
Now, as he heard that sound, we were kind of interrupted there. He was starting to talk about the different people who work for him. He's got several dozen people who are employees. He hopes to be able to find a temporary location. He does plan to rebuild as soon as possible. In the meantime, he hopes to find a small space of a restaurant that he could slide into and keep going and put those employees back to work. We also talked about his connection to the Yankees. If you ever worked here, you saw all the memorabilia, signed photos and shirts and whatnot from Yankees players and other sports memorabilia. Much of that was lost here, but we'll take a look at what's left. And again, what his plans are for the future coming up tonight starting at 5. As far as a cause, they're saying possibly electrical, but they are not suspecting arson at this time. We'll send it back to you in the studio, Liz.
Hey, Jerry, just one quick question, because Augie's does a tremendous business this time of year. He's got to be heartbroken to think that he can't serve those customers. I mean, this is really the heart of his year right now.
Yeah, you know, for any restaurant owner, they'd probably say the same thing. I did ask him about that. I said, boy, you know, it's never a good time of year for this to happen, but right now, and he says, yeah, he goes, just last night, he says they were busy. They were out here till 11 o'clock cleaning up after their dinner crew that came in, their dinner crowd. And he said, certainly a lot of business being done, a lot of business now lost. Again, as I mentioned a moment ago, he hopes to find a temporary space where he can house the restaurant, but that likely won't be able to happen until track season has ended.
Well, I know there are a lot of people who will be disappointed as well, because that was a very popular spot in Ballston Spa.
Yeah, a lot of people on Facebook today talking about it too, sharing all their stories about it, and again, urging him to rebuild because they want to see Augie's come back.
All right, well, that seems to be the plan, and we'll let you learn more and look forward to hearing more tonight. Thanks, Jer. All right, Nick, we'll be right here waiting. Thank you. There was some chaos overnight at a gas station in Schenectady. Police say a driver hit a gas pump at the Mobile at 585 Broadway and took off. The pump then caught fire, but some quick thinking by the gas station employee prevented an inferno as he shut off the other pumps. About 2 hours later, police found the car that had hit the pump, and they say it was abandoned. Police are still looking for the driver. No one was hurt, luckily, and anyone who may have witnessed something that last night is please asked to contact police. And fire investigators this noon are looking into the cause of this fire overnight in Queensbury. It happened at Ridge Road Car Care Center. It was in 2 o'clock in the morning when it broke out. The building is being called a total loss now. No one was seriously injured there.
New this morning, police in Schenectady are looking for a driver who struck a pedestrian and then just sped away from the scene of the accident. This happened just after 11 o'clock last night in front of Boulevard Bowl on Erie Boulevard. The victim's injuries are unknown at this hour. If you have any information, though, call the Schenectady police.
An Albany man admits to stabbing a state trooper at the Empire State Plaza. Eric Green pleaded guilty to attempted murder and robbery in Albany County Court this morning. Green approached Trooper Rodney Smith back on March 3rd and asked for help. While Smith checked his ID, investigators say Green stabbed him in the neck and then ran off. Green could face 30 years in prison when he is sentenced next month.
Time in state prison for a man convicted of murdering the mother of his children. Jason Guinup was sentenced to 20 years to life today in Rensselaer County Court. That and the death of his ex-girlfriend, Nikki Hart. Matt Markham was there. He shows us how her family now is trying to move on.
The court calls the case of the people versus Jason Guinup, indictment number 12.
The emotions filling the courtroom in Rensselaer County were real and raw. Family members crying over the loss of Nikki Hart. Her sister's hands trembled as she delivered an impact statement to the judge and Hart's admitted killer.
I wanted to kill you myself right then.
Jason Guinup pleaded guilty to the stabbing death of Hart, his girlfriend, with whom he has 2 children. They were in Hart's home in Schodack when Guinup showed up in December.
I never expected to see what I found. She was now lying by her door with blood pouring out of the left side of her neck.
Ashley Hart read the details of that December night at sentencing.
I wanted him to relive it as I relive it every day. I wanted him to go sit where he's sitting and he can process that.
Guinup may have already begun making one final statement.
I wake up every day knowing that I failed miserably as a father, as a boyfriend, as an uncle and a son, and I pray to God that someday I might be forgiven for my actions.
His prayer could be answered.
I do believe he is sorry. It's very tough. He was a person that was in my life. We had a friendship, we had a bond, and I don't know where it ever went wrong.
Hart's sister is thankful for that plea deal and that this case didn't go to trial, saying no one needs to see pictures and details of a brutal beating and violent stabbing. It helps begin a journey of healing.
Each day is different. Each day is new. You have your good days, you have your bad days, and you got to keep on going. He destroyed my sister. He's not going to destroy me, and I will have that strength to keep carrying on.
Matt Markham, CBS 6 News, Troy.
Now, Hart's father also made statements before the court expressing how one isolated incident of domestic violence isn't isolated at all, and you'll hear from him at 6 tonight.
A Chestertown man facing rape and child porn charges is now accused of trying to hire a hitman to kill his victim. A Columbia County grand jury indicted Perry Pendle on criminal solicitation charges. The Columbia County DA, Paul Chika, says Pendle tried to have another inmate arrange to have the 13-year-old girl he's accused of raping killed, so she would not be able to testify against him at trial. Pendle remains in the Columbia County Jail without bail.
Coming out tonight about a weekend murder in Scotia. 20-year-old Jeffrey Steele charged with second-degree murder of his mother. Police say Steele stabbed 59-year-old Teresa Bernard just after 2 a.m. Sunday at 277 North Ballston Avenue. His stepfather found her dead in the bed. As he was leaving the scene, a Scotia police officer noticed him, and then Steele took off on foot. Well, he was located at a nearby auto body shop. Police say they were forced to tase him when he raised a knife.
I do believe he would have been a threat, because you're talking about someone who just committed a vicious crime with a dangerous instrument that he still had on him. We don't know what his state of mind immediately following that incident was, so we don't know what he would have done as he encountered anyone else.
Steele is being held in the Schenectady County Jail. Now, this case marks the fourth murder in our area in the past year in which a son has allegedly killed his mother. That's known as matricide. Back in October, Carol Stanford was killed in Greenfield. Her son Joshua McWayne was charged with the murder. In July, James Dibble was charged with second-degree murder in the death of his mom, Gwenda Lisman. And just days later, on July 4th, police say Anthony Repp of Scatticoke attacked his mother, Cynthia Matala, and his stepfather. Both died. It's a disturbing trend, to say the least, and today I tried to find the story behind the latest defendant and see if there's any way to explain why these things are happening. 20-year-old Jeffrey Steele stands accused of killing his mother here on Route 50 in Scotia at the home they shared for years. According to Scotia Glenville Schools, Jeffrey was enrolled but was in and out of their schools because the district wasn't sure it could meet Jeffrey's needs. In 2009, when he was 16, he was put into the GED program but had missed 20 consecutive days of school by October 9th. And was kicked out. District officials say Jeffrey's mother, Teresa Bernard, had been notified multiple times about the absences. We're doing a story about what happened at that house down the way. Little else is known about Steele or Bernard, other than that Steele's father died years ago. That's what I'm hearing from everybody, that nobody really knew much about them.
No, I didn't even know the family.
That was pretty much the same response we got from neighbors who live up and down the street, that no one really knew the family who lived here at this home. However, the problems that may have led to this weekend's tragedy, not unlike those that could be plaguing other families. Dr. Rudy Neidiger says for someone to kill, there's clearly a disruption in logical thought, deeply rooted in psychological issues. However, he believes there may be a reason why we see more violent acts now than in the past.
Many kids today have much more contact and exposure with electronic kinds of interactions than they do with people. And I think that we're starting to see some evidence that kids who are growing up in this electronic age do not deal as effectively with other people in some circumstances because they don't have as much experience.
And Neidiger wanted to point out that he has no direct knowledge of Steele or Bernard. He said he has seen several cases where young people feel their interactions through electronic devices and social media are their only social experiences.
Chaos in Troy last night leaves police with more questions than answers this afternoon. Police responding to a report of gunshots at the Cumberland Farms on Campbell Avenue just after 7 o'clock. Upon arrival, they found a man shot in the torso. He's now at Albany Med. A second victim driven to Samaritan Hospital. Police say that they found a taxi and an SUV with the windows shot out too. This afternoon, they're still investigating.
A Gilderland man will spend 8 years in prison for stabbing another man in Colony. Elias Delagianis was sentenced this morning in Albany County Court. He pleaded guilty to attempted assault back in May. Delagianis got into an argument with another man at a home on Birch Tree Road in March. Police say that fight escalated, and then Delagianis pulled out a knife and stabbed the victim several times in the head and torso. The victim suffered several wounds, including a punctured lung, and had to undergo They went from cheers to jeers. Glenville police have arrested this woman you're about to see, Michelle Crandall of Scotia. She's the owner of Empire Explosion All-Stars Cheerleading in Glenville. Investigators say Crandall charged thousands of dollars in fees to area families for cheerleading instruction and equipment, but police say she never provided that gear. She also never registered the cheerleaders for competitions as she was supposed to. They say Crandall even lied about the event, saying they were canceled.
Heartbroken. I mean, when they don't get to go and they don't get to show off their skills and try to compete with other groups of the same, same people, they're heartbroken.
In addition to being out perhaps hundreds of dollars.
In addition to being out hundreds of dollars. And some of the victims that had come forward also had a hard time coming forward because they actually felt bad for Ms. Crandall because they've known her for a long time and thought that she was an honest, reputable person. And it was really hard for them to, it was a hard pill to swallow when they found out that they're kind of being cheated here.
Well, Crandall is now charged with scheme to defraud. Investigators believe there may be other victims out there, so if you think you may have been scammed, Glenville police want to hear from you. A court appearance this morning for a former RPI employee accused of going on a personal spending spree on the college's credit card. Christine Dickinson pleaded not guilty to grand larceny. Investigators say she racked up $350,000 in charges, using the card for anything from cash advances to cruises and trips to casinos. They say it happened between 2003 through 2009 when she worked as the business coordinator for the School of Architecture.
A trial for an Albany man accused of killing his wife is now headed to a grand jury. A judge waived the case of 41-year-old Robert Williams to Albany County Court this morning. Williams was picked up last week in New York City on a parole violation. The body of 37-year-old Shireen Wallace was found inside a closet on Sherman Avenue a week earlier. She had been stabbed to death. Williams is a registered sex offender and is now facing a charge of second-degree murder. Thank you very much, Steve. Well, a Niskayuna man accused of sexually assaulting a woman last week in Colony will be in court at the top of the hour. 24-year-old Salam al-Haidiri was arrested on Wednesday. The victim says she was picked up by two men in a car on North Pearl Street back on the 2nd. Police put out a picture of a car and a man they were looking for in connection with the case. The driver faces no charges, though, because he dropped off the girl and his passenger at the intersection of Lye and Central before the sexual assault took place. The girl was hospitalized but is expected to be okay. Police in Colony are looking for your help this noon. They're trying to find two people who held up a pawn shop last night. Police have arrested a third man. They say 47-year-old Eric Taylor of Delmar was involved in the robbery at the Exchange Cash and Trade on Central Avenue. Police say the three pulled a gun on the clerk and tied him up. They got away with cash and jewelry. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. Oh. 5 years probation and 500 hours community service is what a former Niskayuna restaurant owner was sentenced to today for tax fraud. Frank Popolizio did not pay around $100,000 in state sales tax from the Pentagon restaurant on Erie Boulevard. That restaurant has now been closed. He pleaded guilty last year and then paid back the money.
A Rotterdam man could spend the next 32 years in prison for hitting and killing a college student. 19-year-old Cassandra Boone was killed on November 16th of 2011 while crossing Erie Boulevard in Schenectady. 35-year-old Anthony Gallo, who you're looking at here, was driving impaired and with a suspended driver's license at the time. He's been sentenced to 12.5 years to 25 years for vehicular homicide and 2 1/3 to 7 years for leaving the scene. The defense attorney Michael Manchin says that Gallo is sorry for what he did.
He's remorseful, but I think he also recognizes the gravity of what has occurred and what has been going on over the last several months, and this has sunk in quite deeply with him.
Gallo was found guilty back in April of this year.
Colony police are investigating a sexual assault. Police say a 19-year-old woman was attacked in this car captured on surveillance cameras near Central Avenue and Bly Road. They want to speak to the man that you see in the photos. Officers tell us the woman was getting a ride home from two men she had just met when one of them attacked her. She had her eye socket and her nose broken in that attack.
New at 6, the city of Schenectady taking aim at arsonists. After a record number of arsons over the past decade in the city, investigators have a new aggressive approach in tracking down fire setters and getting them thrown behind bars. The department's arrest rate for arsons is 40%. The national average is just 7%. Jennifer Lukey sat down with the fire chief to see exactly what his department is doing to get a handle on this pretty dangerous situation.
We've seen recently just how devastating house fires can be. It's hard enough to deal with a tragedy when it's caused accidentally. But when it's set intentionally and lives are lost, it's almost unbearable. These scenes are all too familiar to the Schenectady Fire Department.
Because of the age of our structures, because of the frequency that we've been experiencing arson fires very recently, we have gained some attention. It's not the kind of attention we want to get, but we've been very aggressive at pursuing those cases.
Over the last few years, the department has added investigators and worked with the state and feds on increasing training. Now, at every scene before the fire is even out, an investigator starts his work. First, looking for a natural cause, an electric or mechanical issue.
We eliminate all those causes. It comes back to one thing, and that's human involvement.
And many arsonists think that any proof of their crime will go up in smoke, but
The fact is that evidence always remains.
many of the arsons are started in abandoned homes like this one. But still, the amount of resources that the fire department and police department have to put into responding to these fires, making sure no one's inside, and making sure the houses around it are secure, are astronomical.
Buildings that are supposed to be secure have not been secure, and either juveniles or transients or other people occupying these vacant structures for illicit or illegal purposes are involved in the fire. On the plus side, we have a good number of cameras here in Schenectady and people who are up and see things that report to us.
A team effort among both the community and the fire and police departments has led to some pretty impressive stats. In 2012, more than 100 fires were investigated as arson in Schenectady. 28 adults were arrested and 40 juvenile fire setters were charged. The conviction rate of those arsonists in this city last year, 100%. So, what investigators are doing here is working, and they're hoping it's only a matter of time before anyone thinking of starting a fire will realize that. In Schenectady, Jennifer Lukey, CBS 6 News.